When George Washington took office in 1789, he stepped into a role that had never existed before. He was not just the first president, but the leader of a fragile new nation, an experiment in republican government surrounded by powerful monarchies that had ruled for centuries. The world watched with skepticism, doubting whether this bold American experiment could survive. The United States was burdened by enormous war debt, its finances stretched thin after years of revolution. The army was tiny, barely more than a handful of regiments, and there was no navy to protect its shores or trade. The country's resources were meager, and its future uncertain. The 13 states were more a collection of loosely connected communities than a unified nation. Each state guarded its own interests, and regional rivalries ran deep, making unity a constant struggle. Beyond its borders, powerful empires loomed. Britain and Spain still held vast territories in North America, each wielding influence and military might that threatened American interests and independence. British troops still occupied forts in the Northwest, refusing to leave American soil, while Spain controlled the Mississippi River, a lifeline for Western farmers and commerce. These foreign powers could choke off American growth at any moment. European powers saw America as a pawn in their global chess game. Many hoped the new republic would collapse, giving them a chance to reclaim lost territory or expand their empires even further. Washington understood that military victory was only the beginning. True survival required careful diplomacy, wise leadership, and the ability to navigate a world full of danger and intrigue. His central question was daunting. How could this weak republic avoid being crushed or manipulated by the great powers of Europe? The stakes were nothing less than the survival of the American experiment. Washington believed the answer was time to grow stronger, to build institutions, and to unify the people. He knew that only patience and steady progress could secure the nation's future. His foreign policy would rely on prudence and restraint, using the vast Atlantic Ocean as a natural shield against European interference, buying precious years for America to develop. In Washington's eyes, the nation's greatest weapon was not force, but patience and distance, allowing America to survive, adapt, and eventually thrive in a world full of dangers. As America stabilized after its own hard-fought revolution, France, its key ally and inspiration, erupted in a dramatic upheaval of its own. The storming of the Bastille sent shockwaves across the Atlantic, signaling the birth of another republic. At first, Americans cheered, seeing a sister republic rise from the ashes of monarchy. Many felt a deep kinship with the French, believing their struggle mirrored America's own quest for liberty and justice. But the French Revolution soon spiraled into chaos and bloodshed. As violence gripped Paris and the guillotine claimed thousands, France found itself at war with Britain and nearly all of Europe, turning the revolution into a global crisis. The 1778 alliance, signed in the spirit of mutual support, seemed to obligate America to defend France. Yet the young nation was exhausted, its economy fragile, its army small, and its people wary of more conflict. The country split. Jefferson's Democratic Republicans passionately argued to honor the alliance and support France, seeing it as a continuation of the fight for liberty and the rights of man. Hamilton's Federalists recoiled at the Revolution's excesses and violence. They favored closer ties with Britain, America's main trading partner, fearing that supporting France would threaten the nation's stability and prosperity. Hamilton argued the treaty was with the French monarchy, now swept away by revolution. He warned that joining France in war would be national suicide, risking everything the young republic had achieved. The debate was fierce and emotional. Should America risk everything for its revolutionary ideals or put its own survival and future first? The nation was deeply divided, with passionate voices on both sides. Washington faced a stark and lonely choice: sentiment and loyalty to an old ally, or the hard path of self-preservation and neutrality. The nation's future truly hung in the balance, as every decision seemed to carry enormous consequences for the fragile republic. Ultimately, the survival of the American experiment took precedence. The dream of liberty would have to be protected at home before it could be championed abroad. Washington's greatest challenge was to keep the country out of Europe's endless wars, preserving its independence and unity above all else. The stakes could not have been higher. The choices made now would shape the destiny of the United States for generations to come. With the nation deeply divided, uncertainty hung in the air. The young United States faced a crossroads, its leaders torn between old alliances and new realities. Across the Atlantic, Europe was engulfed in war, and the echoes of conflict reached American shores. The pressure to choose sides was immense, but Washington acted with resolve. He carefully weighed Jefferson's passionate loyalty to France, America's revolutionary ally, against Hamilton's grave warnings of disaster if the nation became entangled in foreign wars. On April 22, 1793, Washington made his decision. He issued the Proclamation of Neutrality, boldly declaring that America would remain impartial in the European conflict, refusing to be drawn into the chaos overseas. This was a radical break from old-world diplomacy. America would not be drawn into foreign quarrels, setting itself apart from the endless rivalries of Europe. The move outraged many pro-French Americans, who saw it as a betrayal of the revolutionary spirit and their former allies. Tensions escalated with the arrival of Citizen Genet, the French envoy, who openly tried to rally Americans to the French cause and drag the U.S. into war. Washington stood firm, demanding Genet's recall and making it clear that foreign agents would not dictate American policy. By asserting presidential authority over foreign policy, Washington protected American commerce from the dangers of war and foreign entanglements. Neutrality gave the nation precious breathing room to recover, rebuild, and focus on its own growth and prosperity. The proclamation set a powerful precedent, establishing that the president, not foreign agents or public passions, would guide the nation's foreign policy. This principle would shape the presidency and American diplomacy for years to come. Washington's decision was unpopular with some, sparking heated debates and protests among citizens who felt America owed more to France. But ultimately, it kept the nation safe, sparing American families from the horrors of another war. In the end, Washington proved that true independence meant choosing America's own path, even when it was difficult or unpopular. The policy of neutrality would shape U.S. foreign relations for generations, influencing countless decisions and treaties. Washington's steady hand kept the fragile republic out of a war it could not win, preserving its future. His leadership in crisis defined the presidency, setting a standard for all who would follow. Neutrality kept America out of war, but British provocations continued. British troops remained in the Northwest, and their navy seized American ships and impressed sailors. War seemed possible, but Washington knew America was unprepared. He sent John Jay to London in 1794 to negotiate. Jay secured British evacuation of the forts and some trade concessions, but failed to end impressment or win full trade rights. The resulting Jay Treaty was a compromise, far from perfect, but it averted war. Many Americans were furious, seeing it as a surrender to British power. Washington accepted the treaty, believing peace was worth the political cost. The treaty stabilized relations and opened the Ohio Valley to settlement. It was a difficult, unpopular decision, but it bought the nation time. Washington put national security above popularity. The Jay Treaty preserved a fragile peace, even as it deepened political divisions. Sometimes survival meant accepting less than ideal terms. News of the Jay Treaty sparked outrage across America. Critics called it a betrayal of the Revolution and a capitulation to Britain. Effigies of John Jay burned in protest, and newspapers attacked Washington for the first time. Democratic Republicans accused the Federalists of favoring monarchy and British interests. Despite the uproar, Washington believed the treaty was necessary to avoid war. He urged the Senate to ratify it, putting the nation's future above his own popularity. The Senate narrowly approved the treaty in June 1795. The House tried to block it by withholding funds, but Washington's resolve prevailed. The Jay Treaty became law, preserving peace but leaving deep political scars. Washington's leadership was tested as never before. He showed that true statesmanship sometimes means enduring public anger for the greater good. The nation survived, but the debate left lasting divisions. While the Jay Treaty divided Americans, Washington scored a diplomatic triumph with Spain. Spain, fearing a U.S.-British alliance, became eager to negotiate. Thomas Pinckney was sent to Madrid to secure American navigation rights on the Mississippi River and access to New Orleans. The Spanish, anxious to avoid conflict, agreed to all U.S. demands. The Pinckney Treaty of 1795 granted Americans free navigation of the Mississippi and the right of deposit at New Orleans. It also settled the southern border at the 31st parallel. This was a clear, unqualified victory for the United States. Western farmers gained vital economic access, and the nation's frontiers were secured. The treaty strengthened national unity and economic growth. Washington's patient diplomacy paid off. Not all foreign policy required compromise. Sometimes timing and leverage brought total success. As his presidency ended, Washington offered a final warning in his farewell address. He urged Americans to avoid political parties and sectionalism, fearing they would divide the nation. Most famously, he cautioned against permanent alliances with foreign powers. Washington was not calling for isolation, but for independence in foreign affairs. He believed America should trade with all, but avoid entangling itself in Europe's endless wars. His advice was shaped by the crises he had faced as president. The farewell address became a foundational text for American foreign policy. Washington's vision unity at home, caution abroad, his words would guide the nation for generations. The lesson was clear. America's strength lay in its independence. Washington's wisdom became a compass for the young republic. Washington's foreign policy achievements were profound. By staying neutral, he kept America out of devastating European wars. The Jay and Pinckney treaties, though imperfect, gave the nation time to grow and prosper. The Jay Treaty opened the Ohio Valley and stabilized trade with Britain. The Pinckney Treaty secured the West and opened the Mississippi to American commerce. These successes bound the nation together and prevented regional breakaway. Washington's farewell address set the ideal of avoiding permanent alliances, a principle that shaped U.S. policy for a century. His approach, sometimes called isolationism, allowed America to focus on its own development. The policy was not without critics, but it was born of necessity and wisdom. Washington's legacy put American security and prosperity first. Washington's foreign policy was as vital as his wartime leadership. He faced a hostile world, surrounded by empires and pressured to take sides. Instead, he chose prudence and patience, declaring independence from Europe's conflicts. His neutrality was not weakness, but a strategy for survival and growth. Through diplomacy, he secured peace, opened the West, and set a course for future generations. Washington's presidency gave America a generation of stability to take root and expand. He built a strong, independent executive and a foundation for national security. His vision was for a smart, resilient nation, one that survived to thrive. Washington's policies were sometimes unpopular but always wise. He ensured the Republic would endure long after he returned to Mount Vernon.